Welcome to the Whiskey Explorer. Thanks so much for tuning in for another episode, guys. And tonight we've got a fun and interesting bottle for you. We are going to review Doc Swinson Blender's Cut Bourbon. Alright guys, so Doc Swinson has been making whiskey for several years now, and they're one of the non-distilling producers, or NDPs, and that basically means that they're not making their own whiskey per se, they are sourcing it and then doing some blending or additional aging or finishing, and then they're releasing it under their own label. So in this case, we've got Doc Swinson's is sourcing from MGP, which is now known as Ross and Squibb Distillery, but I still like calling them MGP, so we're gonna stick with that. All right, so this is being sourced from, of course, the big powerhouse whiskey brokers in Indiana, MGP or Ross and Squibb, whichever you kind of like to use there. And of course, there are a lot of companies that are doing that, but I think that Doc Swinson does a really good job of doing some additional blending, maybe some additional aging, and then they've got some awesome finishes as well. So this is actually one of two bottles that I have from Doc Swinson's, and the other one is a finished bourbon, and we will also review that on the channel. So stay tuned and look out for that one as well. All right, so this Blender's Cut Bourbon here, this is a barrel-proof bourbon that is 5 years old, and it is bottled at 57.5% ABV, or 115 proof. So I really appreciate the transparency there. They're giving us an age statement. They're telling us how old this whiskey is. They're giving the proof point, of course, and this is a Blender's Cut, so they're definitely sourcing from MGP, but then they're doing some additional in-house blending and kind of coming up with a profile that they want to represent their brand here. So yep, pretty cool bottle looking bottle design as well, and I'll show you guys some of that in the B-roll. I particularly like this cork here because it's got Doc on it, which is kind of in old-timey script, which is definitely pretty cool looking and gives it some additional personality. All right. And just before we get started on the review here, guys, thank each and every one of you so much for tuning in, watching the videos, leaving comments, and if you haven't done so already, if you could please, just a quick favor, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button down below, let us know if you've tried this Blender's Cut from Doc Swinson, and if so, what did you think about it? All right, and we'll have a quick look at the color in the glass here before we get into the nose. So this is actually a new glass here as well, so this is like a little bit of a stylized copita. Again, trying to get some practice with some new glassware before I do the what is the best whiskey glass video, and that should be really fun and interesting to do that with you guys. All right, so looking at the color in the glass here, it is quite a light color, sort of what we'd expect for a 5-year bourbon. We've got kind of a light amber color in the glass here. Not too dark, but still definitely an inviting color nonetheless. Let's go in for a nose here, guys. On the nose, cheers. So right away on the nose, you get this really nice, like sweet, kind of rich cherry candy, like confectionery, sugary candy cherry note. It's really nice. There's almost like a red Twizzlers, like licorice note in there as well. Nice, really nice brown sugar, vanilla. A very sweet, very like indulgent, desserty nose. It's very inviting. That's how I like bourbon as well, so it's definitely very welcome for me. There's also a little bit of sweet oak going on there as well, which is nice to find at a 5-year-old age-stated bourbon. Yeah, there's some depth here. There's like that sweet kind of cherry, strawberry note. Nice vanilla. There's a really strong caramel note here as well, like caramel and butterscotch. Definitely some brown sugar on the nose as well. All right, well, let's get in for a first taste on this one. On the palate, cheers. Okay, so the palate definitely translates from the nose on this. The first thing you get is that wave of like sweet confectionery cherry candy note. Really nice and inviting on the palate, nice and sweet. Rolls into some nice vanilla characteristic, mixed in with a little bit of brown sugar. And then there's an evolution here to the mid palate, which is like a really strong hit of oak. It's not quite sweet oak. It's a little bit more of kind of younger, astringent oak. 5-year-old product, would kind of expect a little bit of that in there for sure. So it's kind of like charred wood, oak note in the center. What's nice about this bourbon as well is that it is actually like decently mouth coating. It's kind of like a medium viscosity, and it does coat your palate. You also get a nice little Kentucky hug on the way down. The finish is maybe a little bit on the short side for a barrel proof bourbon. So maybe that would be kind of my one complaint, is that there is some flavor that kind of hangs on, but it's a little bit astringent, a little bit young, youthful tasting, a little bit of graininess there, but on the whole, it's a really, really well blended bourbon. I really, really enjoy this, so it's good stuff. All right, let's take another quick sip here, guys. So on the second sip, cheers. Wow, there was almost like an effervescence to that sip there, so some nice activity on the tongue there. Really nice, again, that sweet confectionery, cherry, and vanilla kind of cream mixing in together at the beginning of the palate there. Transition more to the vanilla, and then it gives way to that really like oaky presence in the mid palate there. Then the finish on it is kind of like, there is more of that medicinal cherry, sweet cherry kind of note. A little bit of astringent kind of oak on the finish of the bourbon here on the experience. A little bit of black pepper comes into play on the finish as well. All in all, a really well-blended bourbon. So this here, for value, this runs about, I picked this up in Alberta, as we can't get it here in BC. I think it was about $80 Canadian for this, which is a barrel-proof bourbon for $80. I think for this like quality, it's actually really good value. So I think in the States you'd probably find it around the $50 to $55 mark. So I think this is definitely worth a pickup and worth it for you guys to try. All right, so that'll do it for the Doc Swinson Blender's Cut. Thanks so much again for tuning in, guys. Until next time, may your sails be full and your drams be fuller. Cheers.